Hi, Troy. My name is Joanne, and I'm taking off my glasses so you can see my face better because of glare. But anyway, I am adopted. I was born on June 7th of 1967 in Manhattan, New York at Roosevelt Hospital. My birth mother is Gloria, Gloria, Mary, Mary, Shank, Schenk. Um, I have been searching for 35 plus years. Um, and it has been a long journey. I have brothers and sisters I didn't know existed till about 2003. Um, all my life, I had wondered where I fit in, who I belonged to, who was my siblings. I always felt that my triplet didn't die at birth, that she or he was adopted out first, but actually it's been confirmed that my sister did or my brother did die at birth. I was a triplet set. Anyway, um, I had a very, very good home. And this was me on September 18th, 1967, a couple of days after we had come to our foster home, our forever home, 6 years later. And this is me and my sister the same day in 1967. We had a, my mother was a foster mother, and she would take children in from the New York family. There was a young girl that was living with us. Her name was Kathy Doll, and she was taken back by her family. Um, and anyway, my parents wanted to adopt us. They couldn't have children of their own anymore, and they loved us very much. Never throughout my childhood or even adulthood, we were never considered the adopted daughters. We were their daughters. So we had a very good home and a very good upbringing. Um, but there was always something missing for me. And this had nothing to do with my parents. I loved them very much. They raised me well. It had nothing to do with my fraternal twin sister. It had nothing to do with anybody but me. And when I was 14, um, my grandmother, would tell me, go to the go down to the beach at sunset and talk to God. This is a picture of me when I was very little at Christmas time. This was taken in 1968. It was my Aunt Alice, my grandmother, my mother, me, and my sisters. And my grandmother loved me very, very much. And it was hard for me understanding a lot of things. I couldn't grasp it. And when I was 14, I made a promise to God that I would find out the name of my triplet, and make sure that that child had a headstone and where it was buried so I could find it and place flowers down. And if it didn't have a name, I'd give it a name and I would give it a headstone. But I also made a promise that if I had siblings, that I would never stop looking for them. And for 35 plus years, I had not stopped looking for them. I have gone internet searching for them. Anyway, because my story is so long and complicated at times, I'll try to fully give it to you. My birth mother, Gloria Mary Shank, was very mentally ill. She had schizophrenia and hyperphrenic. And she was known to the courts for vagrancy and for prostitution. And in 1952, it was suggested to her father, William Joseph Shank, Schenk. Um, he was born on July 3rd of 1908, and he died May 1st of 1965, that he would commit her to a mental institution, but he refused to. Gloria spent a year in a mental institution, and when she came out, she was pregnant, and she had a son. Well, that son was adopted by my grandfather, William Joseph Schenck, and his then wife, Margaret Schenck, Schenk. My birth mother's mother, Helen Murray Schenck, died in 1934 of the same disease that my sister has, which is sarcoidosis. William had married Margaret in around 1935-36, and she basically adopted her and my uncle, William Joseph Schenck Jr., through marriage. But her sister Helen took care of William, and he was injured when he was 7 years old. That much I know. And anyway, then Gloria had a daughter in 1956, and she had a son in 1954, and then she had a son in 1957. Now, from what I understand through that is that Gloria got involved with a ring that women would marry immigrants that would come over from other countries on a boat as seamen, crewmen, and she married this man, and his name was Edward Sideratos. He had a Greek name, but he used Edward in America. And she married him. And then in 1957, as I said, she had a boy. His last name was Sideratos, Sideratos. And Helen Schenck, who was born in 1927, I do not have a full birthday on her. She was born in Manhattan, New York City. She adopted him, and she lived down south somewhere, according to the New York family. But she had adopted him. And then in 1958, she had a daughter, female Sideratos, Sideratos, and her birthday was June 23rd of 1958. In all my life, I don't understand how you could have this many kids and give them up for adoption. But in my mother's state of mind, my birth mother's state of mind, I should say, in her mind, she was doing the right thing. And she had a daughter in 1959 named Carol Ann. She was found in 2002, and then she had a son his last name was Sideratos. He was adopted right after he was born, within 3 weeks. His name now is Paul Krause, and he lives in Illinois, and I found him in 2011. Then in 1965, she was arrested and wrongfully convicted for having thyroid medication and vitamins, and the police and the narcotics thought that it was drugs. So she spent 21 days in the House of Women's Detention Center in Brooklyn, New York. She couldn't afford the $25 to bail herself out. She couldn't go to my grandfather's funeral, and she blamed herself for his heart attack because she was all over the media, newspapers and TV about this. She was one of the first cases in New York City for wrongful convictions. And she was also expecting a baby at that time. So she had another child between late 1965 and early 1966. And then along came me and my sister and my triplet, and we were breech babies, and we were born C-section at Roosevelt Hospital in New York City. And one died at birth. It was a stillborn. And my sister and I did go home with her for a very short period of time. Then around June 9th, there was a fire at the Sherman Square motel where she was living at in New York, in Manhattan. And a caseworker came and took us to the New York Foundling with her. And she poured her heart out to the New York Foundling that she had insomnia, she had a overactive thyroid, which I have now. She told them that she wanted to get a hysterectomy because she didn't want to have any more children. She told him about the birth father that supposedly he ran off to Canada, and he wanted her to go there, and he sent her a letter through her cousin, and she wanted to get a divorce. Now, the man that she named as my birth father is not my birth father. He was deported in 1961 because he crossed over the Canadian lines back into the US and got caught. So he was deported back to Greece. Um, in all my life, I will not understand, pardon me, how come there was no safety net for her. I forgive her. I never was angry at her because she gave me and my brothers and sisters a chance. In her right state of mind, adoption was the best thing for her. Now, with my sister Carol Ann, she abandoned her in a box in front of a church at a week old. And Carol Ann was taken to the St. Vincent's Hospital because she had a bracelet on her arm and was taken to the New York family. New York family was well aware of which child it was and who it came from because every child she had went through the New York family. With me and my sister, when we were taken there, I had pink eye, and my sister was placed into another foster home while I was in the nursery getting better. My mother had told me that she was placed in another foster home at the time, and then my birth mother came to see me around, I want to say June 27th, but it could be July 27th of 1967, according to the New York family. I can't remember. And the visit did not go very well. And it upset me, it upset her. And then a few days later, I was exposed to chickenpox. Go figure. Who I'm looking for is my oldest brother in 1953 and my brother in 1957, who were both adopted back into the family, and my sister born on 6/23/58, because there's too many of us. I want to be able to tell my siblings that I never stopped searching for them. I want to be able to tell them that I love them, and I want to be able to give them a hug. I want to tell them that I had a good home and I was raised well. And I want them to know that I exist, that I'm here. My sister, my paternal twin sister, is sick with sarcoidosis. It is something that they need to know about. My sister had a tumor on her spleen a few years ago and she had to have her spleen removed. They tested the tumor and it came back as sarcoidosis. There is no cure for sarcoidosis. My sister has to live the rest of her life on medications, and she has to go for testing every month to make sure that it's in remission. She can't go out in the sun, direct sun. She has to be covered up. She breaks out in rashes real bad. She's had problems with her eyes. She's had problems with walking at times. She had a mini stroke on one side of her brain. And then a few weeks later, she had a really bad stroke. She had gone to the doctor, and the doctor said to her, "You look like you're having a stroke. You need to get to the hospital." And instead of him calling an ambulance, she drove herself home and called my aunt and my uncle, and they came and they called an ambulance. My sister had slurred speech. My sister's whole left side was paralyzed for a little while. She had to go to therapy. When they did the scan, the MRI, they found that she had had a littler stroke earlier on. My sister's only 48 years old. It's something that she shouldn't have to live with, but she does. And there's things that are inherited that we didn't know about. When I was born, I had a problem with my ankles. It would turn in and I'd wear one side of my shoes out. I'd have to wear an ankle brace in my shoe for a long time. I had problems with my eyes, which the doctors are figuring that it's because of the pink eye and chicken pox that has caused me to have problems with the muscles in my eye, which I have lazy eye and I've had all my life. And I do wear glasses, as you can see. I've worn them all my life. Um, Not a day goes by that I don't think of my siblings, and not a day goes by that I don't wonder about them. And all I would like to do is find them and tell them that I care about them and I love them and that I never stop searching for them. And that's been my Christmas wish too, as for as long as I can remember, is all I wanted was to be able to find my siblings or a sibling. I wanted to know about our medical history. I now have an overactive thyroid that I inherited from my birth mother. My birth mother grew up in the Bronx at 361 East 158th Street. That's where my step grandmother, Margaret Shank, passed away in 1994. Things that I discovered on my own. I contacted my own family doctor and I asked him for my medical records and told him about my sister. He was kind enough not only to send me my medical records, but send me the medical records of that I'm not supposed to have from the New York family. So I have history. I have all the information from the time I was placed in the New York family to the time I was adopted. I have paperwork that has my last name on it of Sideratos and crossed out. But what would mean the world to me is just to find my brothers. You know, growing up, you always wished that you had a brother. Being adopted, it's even more of that feeling. And I always wished I had a brother. I always wished I had a protector. And I didn't have that. I was bullied as a child. I was picked on. I was called names and being told I didn't have a parents. And I was called the B word. And I broke out in fights and had to learn to protect myself. And now that I look back on it, I wish I had a brother that could have protected me. When I was little, my parents used to go to the flea market, and my dad would say, "Well, what do you want us to buy you when we go to the flea market? A brother?" And he'd laugh. He'd get a chuckle. So I'm thankful and grateful to you, Troy, for all that you do for adoptees, and I hope that you can help me. Excuse me. Because I really want to find my siblings. Thank you for listening. God bless.